arrested. So, and it's also in the security rule or any kind of security arrangement, you don't work as one. The minimum number is 2. So, and if you feel overpowered, you contact the other person. They should have the communication, link to all their units of operation. So when we do that, you will find out that, and it has to be consistent. By the time they will hear this guy's story, and the ones that will happen later this week, the neighbors or the people that know him begin to take precaution. So let's begin to work as a disciplined citizens in this country. And I'm happy Lagos is always taking the lead. Obey the government, obey the laws, and it will be well with us.
All right, Mr. George, what do you think? How can these security agents protect themselves from the citizens who are now fighting them for telling them to be in proper law and order?
I'm very connected to this question and topic. First, as an environmentalist, I would say the rule of law is very important in every society. A society where there is no rule is a lawless society, and a lawless society breeds crisis, chaos, and disorderliness. In the case of the assaults, because as a result of enforcing the environmental laws, I would say it is important for the citizens to follow the laws. It is good for everyone, both for the government, for the citizens, everyone. In this case, we're talking about a pedestrian bridge. I have lived in Lagos, I've worked in Lagos, and I can tell you that that pedestrian bridge can save a lot of lives, because while you're trying to cross the express, you might get struck or hit or anything. So it is important for people to follow the rules. It is also important because I have observed, working on various environmental awareness campaigns with my organization, the Clean Market Initiative, that a lot of people need mental shift. So they need for more mental health, mental shift awareness. Many people are, I observed that during our last sensitization, we are telling them, keep your environment clean, keep your environment tidy. They will tell you that, it is not about dirty, they are hungry. So while we are trying to enforce the rules, we need to sensitize the people. They need to be aware of their responsibilities. And we told them, he said, the government will not come and clean your house for you. They will not come and clean the market for you. They will not come and tell you to pack your trash and dispose it properly. So it's all about empowering people mentally too. They need to be aware of their responsibilities and enforcing that rule, because without rules is a lawless state. So that's one of the things that we need to look at that very carefully.
Oh, all right, Dr. Weke. Now, what frantic efforts do you think can the agency put in educating the citizens as a doctor in, the necessity of using these pedestrian bridges?
The awareness campaigns, animations, animated pictures, motion pictures can help. You do a picture of somebody who has refused to use the pedestrian bridge and then got hit by an untoward vehicle. Paint emotions. You see people crying, and then you follow it up with message, and then the consequences of defiling the rules. Campaign in the media, radio, in a language, and then in the official language, tank crier, use the community people. Let the people be aware and let them know the implications of not obeying government rules, and let them know how it will benefit you and the other person. This will go a long way in helping us. Okay,
so George, what are your thoughts?
Just as Doc has said, it is important for the people to understand that the rules are meant to help them, to save them. Following the rules save lives. It can save your life. So when you follow the rule, you are trying to cut off from many negative things that can happen to you. And beyond the rules, generally, the people need to understand that our environment is our responsibility. How we keep it safe, how we keep it clean, how we keep it healthy is for our own health, for our own wealth, and for our own benefits.
Now, how can this be beneficial? How would this be beneficial? Because we need to do more of enlightenment in this situation, how can the local governments now coming, especially Lagos states, the local governments in Lagos states coming to enlighten the people on the need for the youth, because they already have a standard. They're used to just crossing the road. How can they be more enlightened in this case?
Okay, I would say when I was a little boy in my primary school, we were taught in class that before you cross the road, look left, look right before you cross the road. I learned that as a pupil in primary school, and I have not forgotten it. I've always remembered it. Even right now, if I want to cross the road, I will look left, I will look right before crossing, because I've been taught and I've grown with that knowledge. The local governments, many people reside in the local areas. They need to work with the state government and the traffic and environmental agencies to ensure that they take this message to the grassroots. The doing things anyhow, the old ways of doing things wrongly should be stopped. We need to start a new approach. We need to take a new step. We need to start doing things right. This whole idea of it's an African man thing. I cannot follow it. Who can tell me what to do? It's not helping us. We are a civilized people. We are informed. And we are not, we also brag ourselves as the giant of Africa. So Lagos being the commercial capital, a center of excellence, is now leading the light. So the people there in Lagos, both in the local, in the city, wherever they are, should embrace this center of excellence. You can't say you are in the center of excellence and you are acting with such bad attitude towards respecting the rules and regulations of the states. So many people will not understand, especially in the rural areas, but with the local government coming in, informing them, working with them, encouraging them, supporting them. And I'll also quickly point out against the excesses of some of these overzealous traffic or environmental officials who try to abuse their position and power in, exploiting or beating people. Or I think we should have a civil approach. People should not abuse their power. Simply because you're an environmental official, doesn't give you the right to beat up someone. You should approach the person in a civil way, and if the person feels that, I believe we have environmental courts or something that can deal and respond to such cases.
In this case, the environmental official was one beating up.
Yeah, assault on both sides, whether it is from the official or from the citizen, I strongly condemn it. No one should be assaulted. So that comes to civility, civil behavior. When people have a reformed way of thinking, they won't see it as a necessity to be beating up somebody. You must not always show that you have a lot of muscle and strength. You must not always respond with your fists. You can respond with your words. You must not always respond with an object. You can respond with dialogue. You must not always respond with a loud voice or tearing up the place or trying to show that you are an agboro, you are the strong man here. Being strong is not by how arrogant you are, it's by how civil you are. And when people begin to realize that civility involves every one of us, they will begin to do things rightly.
All right, you've heard from Mr. George. Civility involves every one of us. We will go on a short break, and when we are back, the conversation here at Atlantic ATN Blowout continues. Stay with us. Back. The World Bank and the African Development Bank are partnering to provide electricity access to at least 300 million people in Africa by 2030. This was disclosed following the meeting of the World Bank President Ajay Banga and his AFDB counterpart Dr. Akinyumi Adesina on Wednesday. It was revealed that the World Bank Group will work to connect 250 million people to electricity through distributed renewable energy systems or the distribution grid. AFDB, on the other hand, will support an additional 50 million people. This partnership is a demonstration of the determination of the World Bank Group and the AFDB Group to be bolder, bigger, and better in tackling one of the most pressing challenges in Africa. Now, bringing it back home, with the constant collapse of the national grid, what impact would this pledge make on Nigeria's power situation at the moment? Doctor, I'd like you to take a shot at this.
Now, if we look at it, it's a good move from World Bank and African Development Bank.
Yeah.
Now, the point about this international support is what they usually call the counterpart funding. I hope this will not have that leg. It's one of the things that delays these international projects. And if they can do it straight on, right, and then monitor the project, we can be sure we will achieve results. But if there is a connection with a link with a Nigerian politician who will be either a major or subcontractor, of course, I want to preempt that it might not find the light of the day. If they want to do a contract, it should be a direct liaison with the government, and then they come execute it and monitor it themselves. The awarding of this contract and all of that should be executed by the international bodies. Having established that, the national grid collapse that we've been having, I have said it severally, I think it draws from technology know-how. Because if we have the technology wherewithal, you cannot hear Ghana. I was in Ghana in August last year, and I spent like 1 week. I didn't hear any sound of generator. If we do, it's a misnomer. It's a national emergency to hear that our national grid has collapsed, and not just once, on repeated notes. And you don't hear people called to question. Now, we have bodies that are private sectors, private investors in electricity. Who are these guys? What is their pedigree? I want to think that one way that these bodies with World Bank and African Development Bank will support will be like partnering with reputable electricity investors, do it directly. I know it will still have a whole lot of deficit in terms of a supply of electric power to the people, considering that we have over 600 million people in Africa. Yeah. And then in West Africa, we have 436 million persons. Nigeria has 200 million. And it means that greater chunk of development deficit across the world comes from West Africa. So if you have a fair distribution of this access to electricity, it will go a long way in helping the African people.
All right. Mr. George, what policies can our government take on to effect an even and fair distribution when the World Bank and the African Development Bank, with them in place?
We've always good policies on paper, but we lack the implementation of those policies. We've heard a lot of reports over the years of billions of dollars that have been allocated for power, but no substantial infrastructure or provision to explain the billions allocated towards power. The World Bank's efforts and the African Development Bank to support the electricity and power situation in the country is a welcome development. The most important thing is that these funds should be properly channeled to ensure that this project does not die in a cupboard or die on paper, that it is brought to life. We have been tagged as a generator republic by other African countries who make jest of us and make fun of us. That is a very negative tag. Our learned doctor here said he spent some time in Ghana and he experienced stable power supply. Ghana is a West African country. What is really stopping us from stepping up? This is 2024, a country with over 200 million people, and a significant percentage of the population are living in the dark. So we need to look at this holistically, and we need to it should be a top priority for the federal government, for state governments, for local government. It should be a top priority for this country.
Now, how can we have an even and fair distribution when the World Bank and African Development Bank makes a donation? Because we've had so many cases of donations from the World Bank being misused, underused, or even confiscated for personal use.
That has been the challenge. Transparency should involve communication. The officials should, from time to time, show transparency with the finance, either through financial reporting, giving information to the people on a step-by-step what was received, what has been spent, what has been purchased, what is being provided, or what have they done with the resources they have. So communication is very important. If some amount of money have been donated by the World Bank and the African Development Bank, the officials owe it to the citizens. It is their responsibility to ensure the citizens are informed on how they use, because it has become public funds. We can't continue to be tagged the generator country or generator Republic of Africa. We need to provide power for our people. It's important for our health. It's important for our industries. It's important for our economy. It's important for our education. It's important for research. It's important for everything we do. It's important to the market women. It's important for small businesses, small and medium enterprises. It's important for our revenue generation. Many businesses are spending more. The cost of doing business in Nigeria is very expensive. And so it is choking these businesses out. So if we have reliable and stable power supply, small businesses will grow. So it's even a win-win for the government, because they are going to get more revenue. More people will pay tax because they are getting more funds. So they owe it to the citizens of this country to be transparent with how they use public funds.
Now, Dr. Weke, he has spoken about transparency. What do you think that can be done for transparency, in quotes, to be a yardstick for even distribution of these electricity donations that the World Bank and the African Development Bank are intending to make?
It's not
so that it gets to the grassroots, so it gets to everyone.
You know, the problem we have about the issues around transparency and corruption in Nigeria, we are thinking that moral devising can solve it. It's not true. Technology and expertise is what you can use to curb issues around transparency and corruption. What do I mean? If we look at the good posture of these bodies to help in our electricity deficit, you disburse the funds in mileage. So it's not like in Nigeria where you say, we have paid the contractor 100%. Have you heard it before? That is a misnomer. It's strange to accounting principles. It's a project, every project should be managed, both in the finance and execution of the physical infrastructure. Now, if you said you define this project, right? If you say the entire Africa, West Africa, where are those areas you are concentrating? And then how much for this first batch? You disburse it and you monitor the mileage. That is the attempt to fix that particular stage. So at the point they're done with this stage and it is certified, you and the bank who is disbursing will monitor it, and then you disburse for the next mileage. So if they come to do with the Nigerian language of, we've given the contractor 80% now, we've given the contractor 100%, right? It's not going to work. So the cure for opaque transactions or corrupt tendencies should be technology and expertise. you monitor proper accounting. You tell the people, the body, this at this point, then the contractors are invited after every stage of the project. This is what we've achieved, and at this point, we think we can be justified to be disbursed for the next stage. So if you now say, okay, we trust you, and then you give the man the microphone, you say, we are transparent people, we are committed to fulfilling the promises of World Bank and the African Development Bank. We are going to make sure our people will have power, electric power, and all that. There is a clap, and then you carry the check and then give to the big man. Go home and forget about it. It won't work.
All right. The Nigerian Education Loan Fund says Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examinations Registration Number, National Identification Number, and Bank Verification Number are major requirements for accessing student loans. The Managing Director of NEL Fund, Mr. Akintunde Sawyer, made this known during an interactive session with members of Education Writers Association of Nigeria in Lagos. About 1.2 million Nigerian students in tertiary institutions and government-recognized skill acquisition centers will be among the first batch of beneficiaries, he said. According to the Managing Director, the money to fund the loan scheme is 1% of the revenue practiced by the Federal Inland Revenue Service annually. Financially indigent undergraduates who need the loan for their education are free to apply on a designed website and must provide their matriculation details. He said that the beneficiaries would be expected to start servicing the loans when they would secure jobs or assets. Now, most financially indigent undergraduates may not be able to meet up the requirements on the registration process for this loan scheme. How can the government make the procedure for accessing this loan less complicated? Because most of the undergraduates who may not have access to these loans are from the grassroots. Most of them are coming from poor homes, looking at the hardship in the situation in this country at the moment. How can it be easily accessed by these undergraduates?
If you refer to me,
yes,
I want to say that the president, I think before the last assent was given, he had removed some of the barriers, like getting guarantors from grade level 12 and above. He had removed it. And then they're emphasizing technology here, right? But what we don't know is the transparency thereof. If we say education can never be funded 100%, this is part support. Is it about the tuition? How much can they assess? And then from time to time, there should be, precedence before drawdown. What are the things they need to do? The awareness should be, it should be above board. Everybody that is a student, qualified student, should know all the conditions, precedent to going to assess the loan. All of these things they have to do. And let's also, this caveat of payment as soon as you get a job. Government should also define get a job. Is it, even if you get a job after 10 years, I've looked at it, the get a job thing is not properly defined. National Assembly has to do some reworking. Is it, can you get a job? They know the work scenario in Nigeria. You know how easy it is to get a job in Nigeria. And even if you get a job, in the first 3 months of the job, you will need to stabilize as an adult before you now start paying loans. You need to eat, you need to pay transport to the workplace and all that. And what in the event that the person, the money is disbursed to is not employable? What category of students are they going to give these loans? These are things we have to consider. Because some persons will collect this loan and use it to pay something, pay bribe, pay their way through, and then a fake certificate is issued that is not commensurate to the paper value called the certificate. So no company will employ such an individual. Even if the person is employed, it's on interim basis, shown the exit point. Now, what I'm trying to say is that there should be strong wordings around who takes this loan. Otherwise, one way that government should have, one thing they should have done is maybe instead of this kind of Herculean measures, take some part of this money and subsidize the people's, the students' tuition fee, right? Because I'm afraid that the desk officers who are connected to our very strong politicians might begin to carve out ways to give out these loans to people that are connected to them, right? It's not, what does it take to call somebody indigent? It can easily define indigent. The student doesn't have a car. The student cannot take 3 meals per day. You have defined. Even when the student is sick, he said he cannot, can't you see, it's the way the person looks. And these are the kind of things we find around here. It's a good move, everybody knows. It's a social method to ensure that the people go to school. What we practice in Nigeria or Africa is education by social demand. And to my thinking, that has not helped us. So even if you want to float these loans, can you restrict it to certain disciplines that we really need in Nigeria? There are certain professions that are inundated. There are even assistant in companies. And you can find so many of them. Can we go to areas, can they restrict it to areas that we really need? You know, areas like, can we have, if people that have shown sufficient prowess in area of energy, we've heard children that it can be given to special students, talented persons.
I want to make reference to something you mentioned earlier. You stated that education cannot be 100%
funded. No.
Why do you think that it should be 100% funded?
Why
do you think it cannot in the Nigerian society?
Not even outside Nigeria. You can, the water you drink.
Do you not think it should be?
No. Nobody can do that. Education can never be totally free. The water you drink while in school is part of the cost. The transport you pay back home is part of education costs. The meal you eat while in school is part of it. When you are sick as a student, you are taken to hospital, it's part of education funding. So we are restricting it to the classroom engagement.
Mr. George, you're also an educator. Do you quite agree with this, that education should not be 100% fully funded?
No, cannot. I didn't say should not.
Yes.
It will be very difficult.
I agree with what Doc said. Education cannot be totally free. It will always involve partners. This student loan that the government is trying to put in place, I guess they're trying to emulate, they have such in the United States, where many students can take a loan, but they have a well-structured system in terms of payback. You know, they have a way that they can be paying back instrumentally to cover their student loan. Some pay for many years. It's spaced out in a way that it is easy for them. Our education involves everyone. Unfortunately, what we are investing in education is very, very small. What are we investing in research and development? What is our investment in research and development? What is our investment in making sure that people who come from vulnerable people from poor homes can have access to quality education? Now, with this loan that they are put in place, they are talking about paying back through the job, which Doc has explained. How many graduates in this country are employed or have a good job, a good paying job?
Okay, but don't you think that we should be at a point where education should be fully funded by the government?
If they want to do that, they can. If they want to fully fund the education, looking at our budget, I don't think it's up to 30% allocation in the educational sector. But they will rather won't want to do that. They will rather want to pursue other things. I think education, and I believe education, is very critical to our economic growth and even our security. So the government should prioritize education. Education is not just building classrooms and then you commission the classroom. It is also providing the right infrastructure and environment, the qualified and well-trained teachers. How many of our schools have a functioning library. Sometimes it beats my mind, it pricks my mind when I see whether a governor or a local government chairman, they build a school and classrooms and chairs, and then they say this is education. No, education is more than that. We are in a technologically advanced world. How many of our students can go to school and have basic tech education? Are these facilities available? You see most of the classrooms and schools, they're already dilapidated. There's no maintenance. Most of the classroom, the roofs are leaking. We don't maintain this infrastructure. So it's not just about providing loan. The government need to sit up and look at addressing education from the roots.
All right, now 1.2 million, do you consider it a good start? Taking cognizance of the millions of undergraduates with the need to access these loans?
It's not a bad start. The most important thing is transparency and ensuring that a child of nobody, a child who does not have anybody, a student who does not have any connection, but is qualified, can have access to that fund.
All right, doctor, what do you think?
I don't know. If you are saying 1.2 million, what's the total number? I suspect these are politicians a lot. That is my own, issue. If you are saying 1.2 million, we should know the statistical value of the number of students in Nigeria. And if you are saying this 1.2 million, are they ready to publish the initial persons to be disbursed to? That should be the transparency index. This person, this is your address, this is this. Because if you are taking our public loan, you should be willing to be public. Let's know you, right? It's our money they are giving to you. So let them publish this in the initial disbursement. The first beneficiaries should be publicized. Let's have their names and details, their universities or polytechnics, wherever their schools are. Let's know who they are, their parents and location, addresses. Yeah, that will show us that politicians are not playing any games around here.
All right. The federal government on Thursday called on state governors to take ownership of the fight against the prevalence of child labor and forced labor at the state and local levels. The Minister of Labor and Employment in Kiruka, Onye Jiocha, who made the call at the official launch of the Nigeria Child Labor and Forced Labor Survey Report 2022 in Abuja, assured continued federal support in policy formulation and implementation. The purpose of the survey is to improve information on forced labor and child labor through data collection, which will help to inform policy direction and interventions towards the elimination of child labor and forced labor in Nigeria. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, universally adopted by the 193 UN member states, calls for the immediate and effective measures to eradicate forced labor, end modern slavery and human trafficking, and secure the prohibition and elimination of the worst forms of child labor, including recruitment and use of child soldiers, and by 2025 end child labor in all its forms. Now, there is a perception of failure of policy implementation in Nigeria. What measures can the state governors indeed adopt to ensure the successful implementation in local levels in the fight against forced and child labor? Mr. George.
Well, in our country, we are very good in talking about the policy. We are good in talking about what we are going to do. But leaders don't just talk the problem, they walk the talk. Child labor, human trafficking, exploitation of children, abuse of children, all these things cannot be fully addressed until the government lead by example. Many of these children you see on the streets hawking and selling that should be in school are there because most of them have become early breadwinners of their family. Some of them, they have been abandoned by their parents. Some of their parents have run away. Some of their parents child labor because they want to sustain their stomach. They want to feed, they want to eat. So they have, you see a child of 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, hawking pure water or sachet water or hawking on the streets under the scorching sun, running around vehicles that child could be hit, that child could be struck, that child could, anything can happen to that child. So the government, the state governments They need to start investing in the people. Invest in communities. This investment should not just be sharing palliatives or trying to say we are going to give so money as cash transfer to poor people. Who are the poor people? Do we have a database in this country? One of the challenges we are facing is that we don't even have a database, solid database that can capture those who are really in need. That database should be updated. And even when we have a database, it should be constantly updated because information is dynamic. It's not just static. So every single day, there will be an updating taking place in the database. So I believe that the government should walk the talk. We have heard so much of talk. We can't stop child labor until we start investing in people. There are too many hungry children in this country. And this exploitation is carried out by people. We should also address it. What are the root causes of child labor and human trafficking? When we address the root causes, we will deal with it effectively.
All right, thank you so much. Now, remember, the talk is for development. This is where we wrap it up on today's episode of The Blowout. Thank you so much, Dr. Nweke, for coming and sharing your insights.
Thank you very much.
And Mr. George, thank you. It's been such a pleasure having you
Thank you so much for having me.
Follow us on our socials on Facebook and YouTube, Atlantic Television Network, Instagram, TikTok, Atlantic TV Network 1, formerly Twitter, now X, Atlantic TV Net. Watch us live on our website at www.atlanticnetwork.tv. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Thank you for watching. I am Divine Bernard. Coming up next is Open Conversation with Laurentia Ogu. Stay with us.